Welcome. Welcome to this community of warmth and caring. It is good to be with one another again, or for the first time. In this virtual space, good to be here amongst other persons of hope and integrity. Here we find both comfort and challenge as we struggle for justice and work for a world that respects and recognizes the inherent worth and dignity of every individual and the interconnectedness of all things. Here we explore the capacity to love and be related, that creative potential made available in community. In this place and during this time, we participate in our own ways in a story of hope. Hope that our lives can be made ever more whole. Hope that our light of free faith can shine ever more brightly. Hope that our world can learn the ways of peace, sustainability, and justice more deeply. We gather on this Armistice Day, or Remembrance Day as it has come to be known. It originated following the end of the First World War. The Armistice Agreement was signed between Germany and the Allied forces in Paris on Monday, November 11th, 1918, at 0500 hours. The ceasefire went into effect
You don't want my video
at 1100 hours that same morning. This time, those over 100 years ago. This year we also commemorate the 75th anniversary of the end of the Second World War. And so I light our tiny chalice. I light our chalice that we may remember all of those who have given so graciously and generously in the cause of peace. On this day of remembering veterans, we light a candle of peace.
I am Lieutenant Nicole Mackay, a Unitarian Universalist seminarian on the path to ordination and a chaplain candidate in the Canadian Armed Forces. I offer you these opening words from my heart to yours as we mark Remembrance Day. We gather to remember those who could not grow old and those forced to grow old long before their time. We gather to mourn and grieve with one another all of our losses. The people, the stories, the loved ones, and the futures that could have been. We gather to do the hard work of facing the difficult realities of our present and our past, where there is conflict, violence, war, and hatred. We gather to hold space for silence as we try to make meaning of our history to help us work for peace and justice today. We gather to rekindle our source of hope for our future by recognizing in one another our shared humanity and our concerted commitment for a better tomorrow. We gather because we need a community to do all of this holy work.
I thank my dear colleague, Nicole McKay, for those words. I invite you now to join Pam and myself in the responsive reading on your screen. I will begin with the solid text and invite those who are over 60 to join me and those under 60 to join Pam with the italicized words. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them.
In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them.
In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them.
In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them.
In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them.
In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them.
When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them.
When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them.
When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them.
So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them.
Let us take now the traditional full 2-minute silence, that we remember them, that we remember to always be agents of peace in this world. I invite you into the silence.
Abide with me, fast falls the eventide. The darkness deepens, still with me abide. When other helpers fail and comforts flee, help of the helpless, oh, abide with me. Swift to its closes of life's little day, earth's joys grow dim, its glories pass away. Change and decay in all around I see. Oh, thou who changes not, abide with me. I fear no foe, with thee at hand to bless. Ills have no weight, and tears no bitterness. Where is death's sting? Where, grave, thy victory? I triumph still if thou abide with me.
In Flanders Fields by John McCrae. In Flanders Fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place. And in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you, from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If you break faith with us who died, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields.
The words of that poem have become, for most of us in Canada, synonymous with Remembrance Day. Always it is read, and many of us memorized it as children. It was at what would have become known as the Second Battle of Ypres in the spring of 1915 that the words of Captain John McCrae would forever immortalize the symbol of sacrifice the world over. Captain McCrae was serving as a surgeon with the 1st Field Artillery Brigade during the battles of the Ypres. It was the death of a friend and former student, Lieutenant Alexis Helmer of Ottawa, that inspired McCrae to write his now famous poem. However, that poem was nearly lost forever, for McCrae, who was not happy with it, had discarded it. A fellow officer retrieved the paper and sent it to England to be published. The Spectre of London rejected the poem, but it was published by Punch magazine in its December 8th edition of 1915. Lieutenant Colonel McCrae died on January 28, 1918, of pneumonia and meningitis. At least that is one of the stories told. The poem offers the challenge to take up the quarrel with the foe, and McCrae clarified, I think on his deathbed it was told, that the foe he was talking about was war itself. Would that we no longer carried the quarrel forward, that we instead worked to resolve quarrels. We, each of us, has the potential in our lives to do that which we would have our species do. Each of us is called to be agents of peace, to mend the quarrels in our own lives and to model peace and justice in our living. I'm so grateful to my colleague, Nicole McKay, who shared the opening words, and please forgive the glitch. I had a technical glitch and could hear nothing for a time. Muddled through, but Nicole sent some extra information to us colleagues of hers in Canada. And one of the things that I learned, and I always love to learn new things, is that poppies became significant as a remembrance of war. As prior to the Great War, World War I, poppies were rare in the fields of Flanders. It said that the chalk soil of Flanders became rich with lime due to the rubble produced by the massive bombardments of battle. The earth was stirred up by so many artillery shells, in turn released the poppy seeds that would not normally have had the chance to germinate. They spread prolifically across the fields until it appeared as a sea of red, perhaps a fitting, ironic symbolism of the blood spilt by so many for so little. The poppies were there because of the bombing was new to me. And it has had me wonder what else might grow out of the rubble of human violent conflict. How might we take the energy, the fodder, from how we have done conflict and change it into fertilizer for peace? For some gathered here, there are memories of war, either being in the fire or with life in upheaval, waiting for the loved ones to return. The whole country focused on supporting the war effort for a time. For war has shaped human society. It continues to impact the life of so many on our planet. Would that we as a species could have the combined will to wage peace with similar resources and energy that we expend on the military. Would that we could invest even a small percentage of what is invested in military efforts to efforts of justice and to wage peace. You gathered here hold memories that must never be forgotten. Lest we forget is far more than a slogan for poppies. This must be a memory and a commitment so embedded in our society that never again will we know the likes of the world wars. For many years now, there have been no veterans of the First World War at the ceremony on Parliament Hill. Still, we hold that their stories may continue to be told and their sacrifice ever lauded, their memory held precious. In this world where war is both glamorized in movies and a constant in news reports, I often feel that there is a desensitization to the capacity of humanity's brutality to its own species. As a child, I learned in Flanders fields. Many of you did as well. And each generation, the living memories are more distant of that time. Would that the actuality of war was also a distant memory. In 2005, the 7th Book of Remembrance was placed on Parliament Hill. These books record the lives of men and women who lost their lives in military service. It is perhaps heartening to note that since the end of the Crimean War, only one book has been filled. Perhaps a little less disheartening that the whole book would be filled with the lives lost in peacekeeping. We remember them. Even in the poem in Flanders Field, inspired by his witness of the killing of a friend, when he talks about taking up the quarrel with the foe, we no longer carry that forward, that we instead work to resolve the quarrels. I want to mention that I wear both a red and a white poppy. And I wear the white poppy as well because it was World War I widows who, through their pain, called for society to work actively for peace and to create it. They created the White Poppy campaign to honor war dead by seeking non-military solutions to conflict and war. And so, I wear both because I honor those who would put themselves in the firing line, those who recognize that keeping the peace is an intention that needs to be held and supported, but also that we as a species can evolve so that our dealing with conflict can be without violence. There will ever be conflict, but can we be a tipping point, the turning point in our human species to move from violent conflict to ways of peacemaking? May we be grateful for the sacrifice that so many made and always remember to be beings of peace. The logo for the Poppy campaign is "Their sacrifice, our peace." And perhaps this is the most important message of the day, is for us to remember and to be agents of peace wherever we can in our individual lives and in the influence that we hold in the world. I invite you to join with me in singing "This Is My Song."
This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and wide. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and pine. But other lands have sunlight too, and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine.
Hear this blessing and hold it in your heart. Breathe peace into being. Words written by Amazing UU lay leader Kathleen McTeague. This is a house of peace. Breathe in a grateful breath. You sit here, this moment of your life, safely and in silence. There is a war raging, far from this place of comfort. We know it's there. We know our brothers and sisters suffer its poisonous touch. Our hearts are weighted with what we cannot resolve, with the knowledge that we do not have a way to call a halt, to step into the fury with the flag of no nation but peace, the banner that calls equally in every language. So here we lift its promise in our own souls. And remember that in this place, in this moment, we are not at war. Breathe in the truth of this moment. Here is our strength, our deep well of courage. Breathing in, we rest our spirits. Breathing out, we pray for peace. May those in harm's way be safe for another day. May those who drive the engines of power be awakened by compassion. May we here all hold the cup filled with courage and will that has been carried by peacemakers in long ages before us. May we drink of it deeply and be steadfast in the ways of peace. May this day of remembrance be for us a day of upholding peace. For if every woman and man and leader in the world were to do this, perhaps we would truly have freedom. I extinguish our chalice with the recognition that its light takes into our hearts our potential and capacity to be peacemakers in this world. And I invite you to take a moment of reflection and watch the postlude video. May the light be with you as we go forth, and those who wish may stay after for a time of communion with each other.
If every woman in the world, if every man in the world, if every leader in the world, if every nation set a true course for freedom, there would be no more war.
If every woman in the world had her mind set